What's going on in Pennsylvania? It used to be a pretty stable housing market, one that didn't experience crazy jumps or crashes. But now we're starting to see some real issues surface. Home prices are dropping not just in small towns, but also in major cities, bustling suburbs, and college towns all over the state. For example, in Philadelphia, row homes are struggling, and even the quiet streets by the lake in Erie are feeling the pinch. We're seeing prices drop more quickly than before, with more homes on the market but fewer buyers interested. In fact, in some areas we haven't even hit rock bottom yet. So what's causing this decline? A mix of things really: economic uncertainty, high interest rates. Investors are stepping back, and we're finally seeing the end of that pandemic-era housing frenzy. First-time buyers are getting squeezed out, remote workers have moved away, and landlords are starting to sell, often quickly, as they worry values might drop even more. In today's video, I'm counting down 10 cities in Pennsylvania where home prices are collapsing in 2025. I'll talk about what's going on, how serious the drops are, and what it all means for buyers, sellers, and investors in the state. Be sure to subscribe to Discover the Nation for the real story behind the headlines. We've got the data that really matters and unique insights into the housing market. Let's dive in. Starting with number 10, we have Bethlehem. This city was once a key player during America's industrial age, known for its steel production and resilience. For ages, it had solid stability, but then it experienced a revitalization. Affordable homes, a revamped downtown, and being close to New York and Philadelphia drew in many new residents who thought Bethlehem was a sweet spot of history and affordability. However, in 2025, that balance is shifting. Home prices have dropped between 8 and 10% since early 2024, and it doesn't look like things are going to get better anytime soon. Inventory has jumped over 60% from last year, the biggest increase since 2012. In older areas with historic row homes, listings are stacking up. Meanwhile, new developments that popped up during the pandemic home buying boom are now struggling to find buyers. The once steady stream of folks moving in from New York and Philadelphia has slowed down significantly. With mortgage rates above 6%, local demand has really frozen up. Wages aren't keeping pace with the inflated prices that were the result of the buying frenzy in 2021, and as property taxes and maintenance costs rise, Bethlehem is losing its edge in affordability fast. Let's talk about Lancaster and Bethlehem. These two cities have been pretty interesting lately, especially when it comes to their housing markets. Starting with Lancaster, it's a place that really blends old-world charm with some modern flair. People have loved its rolling farmlands, historic markets, and walkable downtown. A couple of years back, between 2020 and 2022, Lancaster was booming. Home prices shot up by almost 40% as folks from big cities moved in, looking for that authenticity and extra space. But fast forward to 2025, and things have changed. Home prices have dropped about 12% from their highs, and in certain newer neighborhoods, it's even closer to 15%. This drop is hitting recent buyers the hardest: young families and remote workers who stretched their budgets to buy during the crazy boom. Sadly, many owe more on their mortgages than their homes are actually worth. Rental demand, which used to be super strong, is now faltering. With vacancies on the rise, landlords are getting desperate, offering perks like free rent just to keep tenants. To top it off, insurance costs are climbing due to flood risks and old infrastructure, cutting into profits. Local employers, especially in manufacturing and healthcare, aren't providing the necessary wage growth to keep pace with those prices from the pandemic era. Even the downtown area, usually buzzing with coffee shops, galleries, and unique markets, is feeling the slowdown. Foot traffic is down, and buyers who once saw Lancaster as a cozy retreat are now on the lookout for more affordable, lower tax options further inland. As a result, sellers are trying to adapt by offering discounts, waiving inspections, and coming up with creative financing options, but it's just not enough. The pool of buyers has shrunk, and the upbeat vibe is definitely fading. Now let's shift gears to Bethlehem. This city has an exciting downtown filled with restaurants, art galleries, and a vibrant art scene. The iconic Bethlehem steel has transformed into a cultural hotspot that's attracting visitors from all over. However, once you step outside the lively center, the situation changes. Homes have been sitting on the market for months, and price drops are becoming the norm. Even seasoned investors, who once saw Bethlehem as a safe bet, are pulling their listings instead of facing potential losses. While it's not completely collapsing, you can tell the market is cooling off. The suburban migration that once fueled its growth is now slowing down. The charm of Bethlehem is still there with its beautiful cobblestone streets and festive holiday celebrations, but the confidence in the housing market is definitely waning. In 2025, Bethlehem finds itself at a crossroads, balancing the pride of its rich history with the pressures of a housing market that's not guaranteeing growth anymore. Hey there, let's chat about some interesting changes happening in Pennsylvania's housing market. First up, let's talk about Reading. This city has seen a rich and varied history, from being a railroad hub to a factory town, and later a go-to spot for commuters looking for affordable prices compared to Philadelphia. However, as we hit 2025, Reading is facing a big challenge with its housing market. Home prices have dropped by 14% since their peak in 2022, wiping out most of the pandemic gains. The hardest hit areas are where lots of investor-owned homes are located. During the buying frenzy, investors snapped up entire rows of houses and rentals. Now those same properties are flooding back onto the market at lower prices. We're seeing more homes sitting empty, an uptick in foreclosures, and a slowdown in demand from commuters as the hybrid work trend takes hold. The rental market, which used to be a big part of Reading's economy, has also taken a hit. Landlords are struggling to find renters since local incomes are lagging behind housing costs, and that gap is only getting wider. Infrastructure issues aren't helping either. We've got aging roads and water systems, compounded by years of underfunding, making life tougher for residents. But downtown, there's still some hope. Small businesses and community projects are trying to spark a revival. However, as we move beyond those few lively streets, the picture changes. We're seeing more bank-owned listings pop up, and many homeowners who bought at the peak are now in a tough spot with their properties being worth less than what they paid. Reading used to shine because it was affordable, but that advantage is fading fast. Rising taxes, maintenance costs, and insurance expenses are draining people's confidence. So, Reading is now a cautionary tale for mid-sized American cities. Fast gains fueled by speculation can disappear in the blink of an eye. The numbers clearly show a decline, but the real heart of the story is about resilience. A city doing its best to stay afloat in a constantly shifting economy. Now, let's shift gears and talk about Scranton. Once seen as the perfect little escape with affordable homes and cozy neighborhoods, Scranton suddenly found itself attracting attention during the remote work boom. Buyers from places like New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia started flocking in, drawn by the charm of this small city. There was a time when Scranton seemed like the perfect place to find that big backyard and enjoy the peace of a small town. But fast forward to 2025, and things have changed pretty drastically. After a big boost, the housing market there has taken a real dive, with median home prices dropping over 13% since their peak. Some multifamily properties have seen even bigger falls. Investors who rushed into the city hoping to make a quick buck off rentals are now in a tough spot. They've got homes sitting empty and rental units that aren't attracting tenants, and you can tell their excitement has faded. Job growth has stalled, and while healthcare and education jobs are still around, they don't pay much. Manufacturing jobs, which used to be the backbone of Scranton, are on the decline. With high mortgage rates and incomes not keeping up, the local demand for homes has pretty much dried up. Even residents who were thinking about upgrading to bigger houses are hesitating, uncertain about how the economy will play out. The rental scene isn't doing any better either. Vacancy rates are up, rental demand has become stagnant, and there's been little to no population growth. Young folks from Scranton are moving to bigger cities like Philadelphia or Pittsburgh for better opportunities, and retirees are either downsizing or relocating closer to family. Still, Scranton has its charm. With its tree-lined streets and historic downtown, it carries a nostalgic vibe. But beneath that nostalgia, the city is facing some tough realities. Homeowners are cutting prices, real estate agents are hustling to find buyers, and lenders are noticing more people falling behind on their payments. Sure, Scranton is known as Joe Biden's hometown, but in 2025, the housing market there paints a very different picture. The small city boom is over, leaving behind a lesson that when outside interest wanes, even the most promising towns can fade away pretty quickly. Then there's Erie. This city, nestled by Lake Erie and built on a history of resilience, used to tell a story of endurance. With affordable homes, lovely lake views, and a strong working class spirit, it was one of Pennsylvania's best kept secrets. But now, in 2025, that secret is out for unfortunate reasons. Erie is dealing with one of the steepest housing downturns in the state. Home prices have plummeted nearly 16% since 2022, and those beautiful lakefront properties that used to be symbols of affordable luxury have taken the brunt of the hit. What once seemed like a smart investment is now turning into a financial struggle for many. It's tough out there for local businesses these days. With rising utility costs and harsh winters, homeowners are finding it's getting pricier to keep up with older houses, sometimes even more than the mortgage itself. You can really see the slowdown in the housing market. Open houses barely get any foot traffic, and for sale signs are lingering around for months on end. Sellers are cutting prices left and right, while buyers are just waiting, hoping prices will drop even more. In Erie, investors who took a chance on the affordable lakeside dream are quietly backing out, leaving behind homes that just won't sell and a lot of uncertainty. Plus, insurance costs have shot up because of more frequent weather issues by the lake. Things like flooding, shoreline erosion, and heavy snowfall are pushing those premiums to all-time highs. Add an aging population to the mix and not much job growth, and you've got a buyer pool that's shrinking quickly. Despite all this, Erie is still stunning. That lake sparkles at sunset, the marinas buzz in the summer, and Pressy still feels like a little hidden treasure. But as beautiful as it is, that ain't enough to save a housing market that's way out of whack. Erie's situation isn't making waves in the news, but it tells a common American tale of smaller cities facing tough economic challenges without the support that bigger cities have. Now, as we step into 2025, Erie is on the verge of another big change, hoping it can weather this storm. Now on to number 5, Allentown. Not too long ago, this city seemed like it was making a big comeback after struggling with manufacturing issues. It transformed into a logistics and housing hotspot. Between 2020 and 2022, it became a go-to spot for people moving during the pandemic, especially for families escaping from New York and New Jersey looking for more space and affordability. But fast forward to 2025, and things have flipped. Now we've got more homes than buyers and a lot of uncertainty. Median home prices have tumbled about 11% since their peak, and listings that used to sell in days are now sitting around for months. In Lehigh County, the inventory has surged by over 40%. Suburbs like Emma's and McCundy, once thriving with new builds, are now filled with properties that just won't budge. The industries that drove Allentown's growth, particularly logistics, warehousing, and distribution, are facing some serious challenges due to a national decline in retail. Job openings are drying up, hiring freezes are becoming the norm, and wage growth is at a standstill. This has made many workers hesitant to dive into buying a home, and even developers are pulling back. So here's the scoop. New construction permits have taken a big hit, and builders are really trying to push their current inventory with some serious deals. A few are even scrapping their future projects altogether. Landlords are feeling the pinch too as demand for rentals is dropping. A lot of them are slashing rents or even putting their properties up for sale, worried they'll end up stuck with negative equity due to falling prices. Now, despite all of this, Allentown still has its charm. It has walkable neighborhoods, is near major highways, and has a solid commuter base. However, the vibe has shifted. Once seen as a city with steady growth, it's now a prime example of what happens when things go a bit too far. Downtown redevelopment is still happening, but foot traffic has slowed down, and retail vacancies are on the rise. In the surrounding suburbs, sellers are realizing that buyers are back in the driver's seat. But don't get me wrong, Allentown's situation is not about total collapse. It's more about a needed correction after a whirlwind of growth. There's still potential there, but 2025 has shown the city a simple truth. No market can escape the pull of reality, no matter how high it climbs. Now let's talk about York. It used to be one of Pennsylvania's hidden gems, sitting pretty between Harrisburg and Baltimore with affordability, charm, and plenty of room to expand. During the pandemic, when buyers got squeezed out of bigger cities, the York market took off. Homes were flying off the shelves, and investors saw it as the next big thing. However, fast forward to 2025, and that dream has dimmed. Home values are plummeting, dropping by about 15 to 18% in various zip codes. In areas that once had bidding wars, price cuts are now the norm. Houses are sitting unsold for months, even those that were thought to be entry-level steals. The out-of-state buyers who drove York's surge have disappeared, and local wages just can't keep up with the leftover prices. You can see the slowdown everywhere. Builders have pulled back their plans, open houses are pretty quiet, and sellers who were once all about quick flips are cutting prices, offering closing credits, and still struggling to attract bites. The divide between what sellers want and what buyers can actually pay has never been wider. York County was supposed to be a go-to investment area with easy access to highways, steady job growth, and a strong community feel. But in 2025, rising insurance costs, local tax increases, and concerns about crime have really changed the game. Families that once thought of York as their safe haven are now second-guessing. Investors are cashing out, and many homeowners who bought in 2021 are now underwater. You know, downtown still has that special charm with its coffee shops, renovated warehouses, and a hint of revitalization. But the vibe is changing. Confidence is starting to wane. York is like a mix of its blue-collar roots and suburban sprawl, but that combo has turned into a bit of a double-edged sword. It feels too pricey for the locals, and not quite enticing enough for newcomers. What's happening in York is more than just a real estate trend. It's a reality check for smaller cities that grew too quickly. The foundations are starting to crumble, and by 2025, York will serve as a reminder that no market is truly safe when the economy hits a rough patch. Then there's Harrisburg, the capital of Pennsylvania. It used to be the kind of place that was seen as recession-proof, thanks to its government jobs and stable middle-class community. For years, it managed to ride out downturns better than most. But now, in 2025, even Harrisburg isn't escaping the housing correction that's sweeping across the state. Home prices have dropped nearly 13% over the past year. Areas like East Harrisburg, Uptown, and even usually strong spots like Camp Hill are seeing significant decreases. Homes that used to attract buyers in no time are now sitting on the market for months. Supply has surged, but buyer activity has come to a standstill. While government jobs have eased some of the struggles, they can't fully counter the broader decline. Private sector growth, especially in logistics and small businesses that thrived during the pandemic, has hit a snag. First-time buyers are pulling out, feeling unsure about rising insurance costs and property taxes. Even the luxury developments along the Sasona River, once shining examples of rejuvenation, now feature empty units and various incentives for developers trying to move their properties. Harrisburg's tricky tax system is adding to the pain too. High property taxes combined with city surcharges are making homeownership less attractive compared to nearby towns. Investors who once viewed Harrisburg as a stable rental hub are starting to look at other places. This has led to a growing gap between home prices and their actual worth, with demand unable to keep up with supply. Still, there's potential in the city. The riverfront is stunning, and downtown has a lot of character with its restored brick buildings and blossoming food scene. But the mood has changed. Realtors are noticing a cautious buyer crowd, one that's monitoring interest rates and waiting for the right moment to jump in. As we head into 2025, Harrisburg is finding itself in a pretty unfamiliar position. A city that prided itself on stability is now grappling with the challenge of keeping its footing. While this correction may not be disastrous, it's definitely reshaping what safe means in Pennsylvania's housing market. Hey there! So let's chat about some updates on Pennsylvania's housing market in 2025. First up, we've got Philadelphia, which is actually leading the way in the state's housing slump. This city has such a rich history, from the charming cobblestones of Old City to the brownstones of West Philly. Unfortunately, the market is really feeling the heat right now, and home prices are dropping. Now let's move on to Pittsburgh. This city has a fascinating background, having transformed itself from a steel powerhouse to a tech hub with clean rivers and shiny glass buildings. For quite a while, it was known for having one of the most resilient housing markets in the Rust Belt. But things have taken a turn. In 2025, we're seeing some serious cracks as home prices have plummeted by 17% since their peak during the pandemic. Areas like Bloomfield, Lawrenceville, and the South Side, once hotspots for young professionals, are now seeing homes sit on the market for months. The tech industry, which used to drive local demand, is slowing down. We're hearing about startups downsizing and layoffs rippling through some of the bigger employers. The influx of well-paid newcomers has also dried up, leaving landlords feeling the pinch. Multifamily properties that used to be reliable investments are now either vacant or being sold at a loss. Plus, demand for rentals is cooling off, and new restrictions on short-term rentals have just added to the uncertainty in this fragile market. The downtown area, which used to be bustling, has a lot of empty office spaces now, making once lively streets eerily quiet after dark. On top of that, changes in zoning laws and property use have investors feeling uneasy. It seems like the city's dream of growth and innovation is clashing with economic reality. Homeowners are struggling with high insurance costs and rising property taxes, and population stagnation isn't helping create new demand either. Despite all this, Pittsburgh still has so much character, with its beautiful bridges glimmering at sunrise and neighborhoods rich in history. But in 2025, the visuals mask a tough truth. The housing boom that helped revive the city has flipped. Confidence is waning. Developers are hitting pause on new projects, and potential buyers are hanging tight, hoping prices will drop even more. Pittsburgh has a way of bouncing back. It always does. But this time, it looks like the recovery might take a bit longer. It turns out that just having innovation isn't enough to shield a city from a market correction. Hey there. So, let me fill you in on what's happening in Philadelphia's housing market. It's pretty wild. Prices are actually dropping between 20 and 22% in parts of North and West Philly. Even the areas that used to be hot like Fishtown, Northern Liberties, and parts of Center City are seeing declines of 12 to 15%. Gone are the days of bidding wars and quick property flips. What's causing all this? Well, a lot of it comes down to concerns about crime and those high property taxes. Plus, the city's aging infrastructure and neglected public services are pushing buyers toward the suburbs. Many long-term homeowners are opting to rent out their properties instead of selling for huge losses. And those flippers who used to be all over the market, they've pulled back, leaving behind homes that are only halfway renovated and projects that are stuck. There are also some tough new rules on short-term rentals that have really affected investors relying on Airbnb income. These folks are now selling their properties at big discounts. Developers are sitting on unsold homes, and getting city permits has become a slow grind. Even big companies that used to move to the city are slowing down their relocations. Philadelphia's challenges are pretty layered. We're facing an affordability crisis alongside a loss of confidence in the city. Mortgage rates are still high, wages haven't kept pace, and insurance premiums are really cutting into profits for everyone, from first-time buyers to landlords. But amid all this, the city still shines at night. You can see Independence Hall, the bridges, and that beautiful skyline twinkling across the Delaware River. There's a rich history here, but under that sparkle is a real sense of weariness. In 2025, Philadelphia has become the heart of Pennsylvania's housing decline. It's not just about prices dropping, it's about a loss of faith in the city's future. Until they can address the big issues like safety, taxes, and infrastructure, recovery seems far away. It's heartbreaking for a place that's the cradle of American independence to be facing such a housing crisis. So, what's next for Pennsylvania? From old steel towns to riverside suburbs, the trends are clear. This market isn't just cooling off, it's collapsing in some unexpected spots. If you're a buyer, an investor, or a homeowner, knowing where the market's taking the biggest hits could save you thousands. If you want to stay ahead of the game, be sure to subscribe to Discover the Nation. We offer in-depth housing breakdowns for all 50 states, guiding you through every market correction, opportunity, and danger zone before the news hits. The housing shift is happening now, and Pennsylvania is just the start.